Hello there, it's good to have you here. I'm the Last Mikester, and welcome back to the channel for some more Jurassic World Evolution 2, where this time we'll be taking a look at the top 10 rulers of the sea and sky. Now before we get started, this is my personal top 10, so if you disagree with my ranking, want to voice your unhappiness in the comments below, feel free to do so, respectfully, of course. As far as pronunciations for these creatures go, I'm going to be going by how the game pronounces them, admittedly mainly so that I'm not to blame if they're wrong. So, with that mumbo-jumbo out of the way, let's take to the skies with number 10, the Tapajara, an early Cretaceous pterosaur that flew the skies of what is now modern-day Brazil around 110 million years ago. Its name translates to old being, and never has a name's meaning fit the creature itself so well, because the Tapajara's face very much reminds me of, well, an old man, no other way to put it really. This is pretty much why it sits below everything else, but things get much cooler with the colorful crest that it has, and it begins a pattern of patterns that you'll see quite often with the flying creatures, where their bodies are fairly tame colors and the crest is all bright and shiny. The pattern and color combos for the crest are spectacular, and among my favorite designs in the whole game. Despite the weird face, it does alright for itself at number 10. At number 9, we have another flyer, this time the Sangeripturus, whom also displays some rather funky looking facial features, much like myself. This pterosaur, like the Tapajara, flew the skies of the early Cretaceous, just a little earlier at around 130 million years ago. Experts hypothesize that the creature's strange appearance is an evolutionary adaptation of sorts, allowing it to get at shellfish hidden in rocks more easily. With this information, I kinda wish there was a shellfish feeder in the game so we could see this in action, but oh well, it seems to be okay with feeding on fish. The Sangeripturus has some nice patterns and colors, not to mention some strange gurgly type sounds that match its look quite well. Overall, a welcome addition to my parks. Swimming into number 8, we have our first aquatic reptile that lives under the sea, with the Lyoplerodon. Despite my love for this creature and walking with dinosaurs, the design here isn't quite as awesome, but still cool nonetheless. It roamed the shallow seas of the mid to late Jurassic around 150 to 165 million years ago, because apparently it couldn't actually breathe underwater. It swam alongside other aquatic reptiles like pliosaurs, ichthyosaurs, and crocodiles. It also fed on all of the above because that's just the way it went in the Jurassic period if you were massive and predisposed towards eating things. The Lyoplerodon is a pretty neat creature overall, with some scary sounds and a daunting presence made even more imposing with the spikes all over its body. Cool dino. Reptile. Jesus Marie. At number 7, we're heading back to the skies with the Tropiognathus. Now I will admit that the main reason I like this guy is because it looks a lot like the Ornithocheirus from Walking with Dinosaurs, but it stands, well, flies on its own nonetheless. It has a keeled jaw which helped it to keep balanced while swooping down into the ocean to catch fish. It lived during the early Cretaceous around 110 million years ago. It was a huge boy as well, with a wingspan of 8 meters. Its design in the game is fantastic, with some exceptionally cool patterns and colors on the extended crests on the jaw, and is a nice little creature to show off in your aviaries, and I almost always include it when building them. Swooping into number 6, we have Geosternbergia. This unique-looking fellow with a mouthful of a name was also rather large, with a wingspan of 7 meters, and it lived during the late Cretaceous alongside the T-Rex, around 85 million years ago. I think the design here is absolutely fantastic, with colorful patterns on both the huge, beautifully designed crest and on the body. It has a very graceful look, kinda like a swan that could murder you in an instant, and it was one of my favorite flying creatures in the game when I first released it, and still is to this day. At number 5, we have the only marine reptile to get an appearance in the Jurassic movies, the Mosasaurus. This big boy lived in the late Cretaceous around 80 to 65 million years ago. It's one of the largest marine reptiles to ever exist at almost 18 meters long. It is one of 2 aquatic reptiles that can eat the shark as well, which, despite the fact that it drops my frames right down to hell itself every time the animation plays, for some reason, it's still very cool, and so is the design. I like the colors and patterns, the sounds are very neat, and I think that thanks to Jurassic World it's become pretty iconic, and the Evolution 2 rendition is certainly awesome. At number 4, we have the Ichthyosaurus. This big-eyed little fellow lived a long time ago in an ocean right here on Earth, specifically in the late Triassic and early Jurassic periods 220 to 120 million years ago, in the seas of Europe and Asia. Its design here is absolutely fantastic, from the texture work to the colors, the sounds. It's all really well done, particularly the eyes. I mean, they just look so intense and weird and awesome. Yeah, big fan. Overall, a very cool aquatic creature that I'm always happy to have. Into the top 3 now, where we have the Chronosaurus at number 3. It's a large marine reptile that takes us back to the early Cretaceous period, where it swam in the shallows. It has some nice patterning on its back, and is the only marine reptile other than the Mosa that is capable of using the shark feeder, which adds a bit of flair to the creature. It's also named after the Greek god Kronos, and I think that when you get named after a Greek god, that automatically gets you into the Giga Chad club, let's be honest. At the number 2 spot, we have a lesser-known pliosaurid called Attenboroughsaurus. If that name sounds familiar, then it should, because this fellow is named after the legend that is David Attenborough, who recently narrated Prehistoric Planet and has had a long and successful career of narrating nature programs. His brother was Richard Attenborough, rest in peace, who of course played John Hammond in Jurassic Park and The Lost World Jurassic Park, so the creature's inclusion in this game was a no-brainer really. However, awesome naming only gets you so far, but the design on display here is phenomenal. The model is awesome, it looks quite natural, which is a problem for some of the other aquatic reptiles like the Elasmosaurus, in that they look a bit too sea monstery, kinda like something out of Monster Hunter. The texture work is awesome as always, the patterns are pretty chill, but still nice, but I think it's the sounds that really set this one apart. I mean, just listen to this. If I heard that while swimming, I would absolutely start panicking and screaming. It's a beautifully designed animal, and with a second season of Prehistoric Planet hopefully on the way, I think having Attenborough narrating over this aquatic beauty would be a spectacle to behold. Now we have arrived at number 1, the one to rule them all and in the darkness bind them, the chosen one who will bring balance to the force, yada yada yada, the Quetzalcoatlus. Arriving in the recent Dominion DLC, this absolute stunner didn't get to shine as much as I would have liked in Jurassic World Dominion, but you can make it the star of your own show, and man does it ever deserve it. Where do I even begin with this one? Well, how about the fact that it was one of the largest flying animals to ever exist, with a wingspan of over 10 meters. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, 66 to 72 million years ago, and also happens to be named after a god, this time Quetzalcoatl of the Aztecs, and its name means feathered serpent, which actually makes a lot of sense when you see the human kill animation. It dwarfs everything else in the aviary, and also seems to kill pretty much everything else if you put it in the same aviary, so split them up if you don't want all of your other types of pterosaurs to go extinct again. That brings us to the model, texture work, colors, and patterns, which my oh my, there is some truly stunning work on display here. The colors of the downy feathers are vibrant, the patterns and crest colors are stunning, and the sounds are majestic and terrifying at the same time. It's a truly fantastic creature and a wonderful addition to the game, providing a lot of variety to your aviaries, although I prefer seeing it flying over the landscape. It just gives the creature so much more majesty and gives that truly epic feeling that it deserves to have. And yes, I built all of this just to let it out and see it fly over my park. Well, that and I may have opened the T-Rex, Velociraptor, and Spinosaurus gates because I feel like you haven't really embraced the true spirit of the franchise until you make at least one disaster park. Anyway, that'll do it for me, folks. The top 10 dinosaurs is next up, so look out for that if you enjoyed this list, and if you did happen to enjoy the video overall, then consider giving it a like and subscribing. If you are subscribed, then hit that bell so you don't miss any new videos. I always appreciate the support. Much love, take care, until next time.